So that was part 1 of our analysis. Please make sure you are comfortable with part 1, which means you are okay with the information that was given in part 1 and you are continuing to make your topic list, because the topic list will be very important, because I'll be telling you what to do with it deeper into the course. So be comfortable with the industry analysis, be comfortable with part 1, then we will, with a concentrated mind, begin with part 2. So up until now, we spoke about your role, then we spoke about the satellites market, then we spoke about where satellites are used, what are the different types of satellites. Now we are going to launching the satellite. You made the satellite, but you actually have to launch it, right? So let's look at the launch vehicle first. They've given us an image, picture a rocket. Let's start with the first stage. The first stage is at the bottom. So the rocket's first stage contains the rocket motors and the fuel. They are used to carry the rocket from the launch pad to the upper atmosphere. Once the rocket reaches its planned separation point, the first stage is jettisoned and it falls back to Earth. So the first stage has the fuel, pushes the rocket upwards. Once its job is done, falls back to Earth. Then there is second stage. The final stage, or the second stage, carries the payload bay to the point where the satellites that it carries are released into orbit. The final stage contains the rocket's fuels and the electronics that provides the rocket's guidance and control system. This stage is much smaller than the first, because the rocket is much lighter after the first stage has already been removed. So first stage comes off, then second stage also has the fuel, also has the electronics that power the satellite further upwards, and second stage also is removed. If it's a two-stage rocket. So one-stage rocket, there will only be one stage and then the payload directly. It's two stages, the first stage, second stage, and then the payload. The payload is the object, or the objects can be multiple, generally satellites, being carried by the rocket. Carrying the payload to the desired orbit is the rocket's purpose. The payload bay stores and protects the payload for the duration of the rocket's flight through the Earth's atmosphere. The bay is protecting what is inside, which is the satellite. The payload bay also contains the equipment required to push the satellites free from the rocket and into their intended orbit. So it also has equipment which, after first stage, second stage are gone, pushes the satellite into their orbit. So whenever you are thinking about launching a satellite, imagine a rocket, first stage, second stage, and then the payload bay. So satellites, everything that I explained to you is there in this when you picture this diagram. So satellites are launched into orbit using rockets which vary in size and maximum payload. Different rockets can carry different payloads. Some rockets can carry single large satellite, while others may carry multiple medium-sized satellites or many small satellites. There are several standard models of launch vehicle in operation. These can be adapted to carry different payloads, and if a rocket has spare capacity, then it can be used to launch additional satellites as well. Standard info. Alternatively, it may be necessary to load ballast, such as concrete blocks, to balance the rocket and ensure a successful launch. So sometimes if it's empty, you'll have to put concrete blocks to balance the rocket. This very important topic coming in, two rather important topics. First being strategic partnerships and alliances, because when sharing rocket space with other payloads, Leothayre may enter into collaborative launch agreements or form strategic alliances, because you are the satellite maker. You will have to manage your relationship with the launcher, the launching organization. Also, you will have to, when you are managing that relationship, the launch facility becomes your major stakeholder. So stakeholder analysis, stakeholder management, both from your E3 syllabus become very important. Mendelow's matrix for that matter. Next, satellite launches require careful planning to ensure that the rocket releases its payload at a precisely determined point in space with the correct velocity and orientation. Any error in velocity will affect the satellite's orbit and could result it in falling back to Earth. So it's very important that this is managed properly. If the orientation is incorrect, then the satellite sensors may be pointed out to space instead towards the Earth, so there will not, location will not be possible. Sharing communication data will not be possible. Incorrect orientation could also prevent solar panels from collecting sufficient light to produce power. If power is not produced, the satellite is useless. So launches require complicated mathematical calculations that take account of gravity, the Earth's movement as it rotates on its axis and follows its own orbit around the sun. So launching is just not putting satellites and then powering the rocket. A lot of calculations go into the launch as well. So again, forecasting, scenario planning. Tomorrow they can say that Leothayre has extended to providing launch facilities, and we are making now the rocket as well, for example. So then in this situation, multiple scenarios will have to be simulated. What if the launch is delayed? What if the satellite is released in the in a different angle? Leothayre will have to use modeling and forecasting tools in that situation. So just giving you an example of how different situations can come up. Again, this is a big risk area because any minute thing that also goes wrong will cause a risk for your business. So risk is obviously very prevalent in our market. We need to be aware of it, and this is further pointing that out for you. Next, rockets require launch sites, launch infrastructure. You can see the image over here. You'll need the whole launch setup in place. The launch site will also be selected to take account of the satellites or satellites that will comprise the rocket's payload. What satellite is going to be included within the rocket is also an important discussion of where to launch, from where to launch. In order to reach orbit, a rocket must achieve sufficient altitude to escape the Earth's atmosphere. The rocket must also achieve sufficient horizontal velocity to avoid being dragged back to Earth by gravity. So that rocket, the entire process of launching a rocket will be very important. One way to boost a rocket's horizontal velocity is to launch it in an easterly direction, facing the east, and from as close to the equator as possible, so that there is less gravity, because you can control, closer to the equator there is less gravity. The Earth rotates from west to east, so a rocket launched in that direction will benefit from the velocity provided by that rotation. So this is just standard technical information that they are providing you. The Earth's circumference is longer at the equator, which means that launching towards the east from the equator will maximize that benefit. It is possible to launch rockets in a westerly direction as well, or from a launch site which is closer to the poles, not closer to the equator as well, but that will then require additional power, additional fuel, additional complexities. And if there is lots of fuel, lots of power that will be needed, then naturally less satellites will be able to incorporate into that rocket because the weight is increasing, right? So best is to launch it from as close to the equator plus in an easterly direction. The location and the direction of the launch also determines the area into which the debris and the gases created by the rocket will return to Earth. Large rockets often have external fuel tanks or booster rockets that are jettisoned during the flight. They may also be separated into 2 or more stages or sections. The first stage contains a large rocket motor and fuel tanks. The stage breaks away and falls to the earth when the fuel finishes. The rocket in the second stage then ignites and provides propulsion for the next phase, and so on until it reaches its intended altitude. Spaceports are launch sites that serve large rockets. Most are located so that the risk of injury or damage to property is minimized, with large items of debris being dropped into expanses of ocean or uninhabited desert and kept clear of aviation flight paths. So if you have a large rocket, you will have to contact a spaceport for, or rather you have a large satellite, you will have to contact a large rocket manufacturer or a spaceport to launch it, into space. What do I, we learnt about the different rocket types, how a rocket, goes up, east being a better direction, closer to the equator being better, and spaceports needed for large rockets. Let's make some analysis. From the code of ethics, Leothayre must act with professional competence, knowing your business well, by ensuring that launch recommendations and partnerships are based on sound engineering and regulatory awareness, and we should not mislead our clients about the debris or the impact on the environment. That's professional competence. Next, Porter's 5 forces. Now, in this industry, do you think it's easy to just make a satellite, make a rocket, and launch it? No. This industry is inherently having high barriers of entry. Only a few players control advanced launch facilities. So the supplier power will be high. Nobody can make a launch facility overnight. Nobody can make a satellite overnight. So barrier to entry in this market is any which way is high. Now for launch facilities, supplier power is also high, because launching a rocket is not easy, launching a satellite is not easy, so supplier has power. Next, industry analysis. The launch sector is technologically intense. Again, provides the information or provides the indication that as a company, Leothayre will have to be innovative. Prevailing weather must be considered when selecting locations for spaceports. High winds can affect a rocket's trajectory while it is in flight, especially during the first few seconds after launch. Local temperatures can also be an issue. For example, if it's extreme heat or cold, there is fuel involved, so there can be a problem. Spaceports must also be accessible to operators. There is very little point in locating a spaceport in an area that has inadequate transport. Let's say you put a spaceport in the middle of the desert. How will we reach there? Because you will have to deliver parts, rocket fuel, payload, satellites, all that has to reach, right? So the location has to be good, plus it has to be easy in a way that is not harming the environment or risk of injury. There is also very little point in locating in countries that are politically unstable or have unsupportive governments, a very important aspect coming to the fore here. We're discussing corporate political activity here. Now, Leothayre may need to engage in CPA, such as lobbying for political support, tax incentives, or international cooperation, because without government support, doing anything within this market is going to be a problem. I'm not saying do something unethical, sorry. I'm saying keep it within the bounds of ethics, but having good political relations will be very important in this market. Again, political risk is a very clear picture over here, because let's say you have a spaceport in a foreign country, no government support. Straight away, it's a political risk for your business, and this is such a large risk. So this needs to be managed or avoided from the very beginning. Now, after all of this discussion, we finally come to speaking about Leothayre. Finally, Leothayre is being picked up. Up until now, we were doing all the background discussions, all the background, all the background stuff was going on, but we were not speaking about our company in specifics. Now we have started to speak about our company. Again, I hope your list is continuously being created. You are creating your list of E3, P3 and F3 important topics. Let's start with our company now. So Leothayre was founded in 2004 and was quoted on the Vexlandian Stock Exchange in 2017. So, not a very old legacy business, but relatively 19 years in the market is what we have spent, and just recently it has been listed. 7-8 years ago it was listed. The company provides a complete satellite service for clients, specializing in small satellites from 1 kg to 75 kg. Now, very important to understand what complete service means. Complete service means initial consultation, continuing through launch and operation of the satellite or satellite constellations. So everything from the beginning to the launch to the operation of the satellite we provide to my customer. Now, also what we want to note is our focus or specialization is in small satellites. Now this is a good sign for me as a business, because we know that small satellites are less complex and are showcasing higher growth in this market. Firstly, as a full service provider, Leothayre likely operates across corporate, business and functional levels. It will be very important to keep all three levels of strategy in mind, while running a business, because you are a senior finance manager. Next, being listed on the stock exchange means we have to manage stakeholder expectations, shareholder expectations as well, and we need to follow corporate governance policies, corporate governance standards, which is from your E3 and P3 syllabus. So corporate governance because we are listed, shareholder expectations because we are listed, but listing has its advantages and disadvantages. Advantages being quick raise of finance if we want, better visibility as a company, better reputation. It has its disadvantages as well, like you have to manage shareholder expectations, corporate governance, lots of reporting requirements. But we have been in the market for 19 years, 20 years, which means we have garnered a loyal set of customers, some goodwill in the market. That is why we have survived for 20 years. Otherwise, do you know any business in the world which has survived for 20 years and is continuously failing? Very few possibility for that to happen, right? So remember that you have goodwill. You are in the market for a long time and you specialize in small satellites and you provide complete service. I'm also speaking of ERM over here. As Leothayre scales, its risk management will have to mature into a formal ERM approach with clear risk appetite, risk controls, risk reporting lines. So an ERM system application, ERM system upgrade could be on the horizon for Leothayre as a situation. So you should have revised it and ERM should have been noted, because risk is going to be very prevalent and very important because of the nature of our industry. Next, Leothayre's engineers have the necessary knowledge and experience to analyze a client's mission and recommend suitable solutions. The mission determines the sensors that the satellite must carry and sustain. That has implications for the size of the satellite and the cost. So we have the engineers, we have the expertise with us. Leothayre's workshops have the staff and equipment that are required to design and build small satellites. So we have the workshops as well and the equipment as well. This is a very specialized area, as you can imagine. For example, all components must be certified as suitable for space. Components that are robust and reliable on Earth might not be good enough for space. The build must survive the launch and the deployment, and any movable parts such as hinged solar panels and antenna must operate reliably. So you have your engineers, you have your workshops, you have all the aspects which can be followed. Let's say you have all the detailing needed to succeed in this market, and that is the structure, let's say the backbone of your company. Because we're made this discussion, it will be important for us to speak about core competency. Now, Leothayre's ability to advise our clients and custom build space ready for small satellites in-house is your core competency. What are you best at? Advising clients, then making the satellites. These are your core competencies. These are your unique resources. You need to make sure that you stay ahead on these. You need to make sure that you keep developing these. If I look from the P3 perspective, application controls. So there must be controls built into the design process itself. When we are designing and building satellites itself, your controls have to be strong. Because at a later stage, if you find problems, it will be much expensive to repair them. In the design itself, if you are very clearly having strong controls, there is less chance of things going wrong. So this is your application controls in the design stage that I spoke about from your P3 syllabus. Next, satellites must be thoroughly tested before launch to ensure that they will operate reliably once they are in orbit. Naturally, you will have to be very, testing these satellites very thoroughly before they are launched. Leothayre has extensive test facilities. So we have testing facilities available as well, which will have to be managed. So we have, consultation, manufacturing, testing. Leothayre, though, does not operate its own rockets, but it has close working relationships with several launch providers. So you don't have your own rockets. You have relationships with launch providers who actually launch these satellites. So again, relationship management, stakeholder management that I spoke about earlier becomes important over here. It can negotiate launch slots on behalf of clients, ensuring that satellites will be placed in the correct orbit in time to meet the client deadlines. Alternatively, clients can request completed satellites to be delivered to them so that they can make their own arrangements. So you can make the satellite and give it to your client, or you can make the satellite and then negotiate the launch on behalf of your client as well. Now, managing client-specific launch arrangements may involve staggered payment terms. For consultation, you will be paid this much. Manufacturing, you will be paid this much. So for launching, you will be paid this much. So there is going to be constant coordination with third-party providers, coordination with the client. So a strong working capital management system to align cash flows with the project will be important. If you're spending your own money and going to receive money from your customer at a later date, it's going to have strain on your business cash, on your business, let's say just the business finances. So managing this financial situation becomes important for Leothayre. So short-term finance options could be one that Leothayre needs to explore because of a certain situation that arises. So you need to be aware that, okay, this is how your company operates. Leothayre can provide ground stations that can control the mission once the satellites are in orbit. So you have ground stations by yourself. What you don't have is launch facilities. So expansion, setup of a launch facility in a different country, so transaction risk, translation risks, all of those are very, very prevalent. You should be starting to think in that direction. These are required to send instructions to satellite and gather the data. We already know what ground stations are. Leothayre owns and operates its own ground stations that can organize additional support from third parties for missions that require specialized equipment. A typical mission takes 12 to 18 months from initial consultation to launch. So the gestation period is long. You will keep receiving money over these 12 months, 18 months in a staggered way, while continuously committing costs at your end in terms of management, production, just the maintenance of your facilities. So repeat builds can be quicker, taking as little as 4 to 6 months. The company has built a basic satellite body called Leothayre Standard, which is basically a CubeSat that can be applied in 3U, 6U and 12U configuration. So we have a standard body, and then based on that body you can make adjustments based on the client's needs. The design incorporates solar panel arrays and can be adapted to accommodate almost any type of sensor specified by the client. It is quicker to adapt a Leothayre standard to meet a mission's requirement than to design a satellite from scratch. Remember this. Obviously, you will want to pitch to your clients what is best for them. But you need to keep in mind that it will be quicker for you, quicker for them, better for them if you can use your standard Leothayre satellite that you have, which is a CubeSat, and then customize it to the client's requirement. Leothayre has successfully launched 64 satellites. Just a recap, we do consultation, we do manufacturing, we don't launch, and we provide ground services. We have launched 64 satellites as well. It also has a substantial numbers of orders awaiting fulfillment, which means already our order book is large. The company has made sales to clients in several different countries thanks to, in part, its excellent reputation for meeting deadlines and achieving mission objectives. These are again your core competencies. What is your core competency? Small satellite manufacturing, quality manufacturing, excellent reputation, meeting deadlines, achieving mission objectives. These are my core competencies, because of which a lot of orders are pending and more people want my satellites. Some very important links over here. The ability to repeat builds quickly positions Leothayre's standard CubeSats in the maturity phase. Because these are already created, they are standard, they are being used. But new innovations which fall under the development or the growth category will be important, because new innovations every day are pushing this market forward. We know that. Again, reputational risk coming to the fore over here. Now I'm going to ask you to do one more thing. See, up until now you are making a list of topics, right? Now make a list of risks as well. Second time when you are viewing the pre-scene, make a list of risks as well. Credit risk, working capital risk, reputational risk, injury risk, whatever risks I have spoken of. Because risk management will be an important part of this chapter, and specifically economic risk over here, because we have clients from all over the world. So the long-term impact on Leothayre's competitive position due to sustained exchange rate changes. For example, if a rival firm in a low-cost currency country can offer similar satellites but cheaper to Leothayre's, then we are at an economic disadvantage. Same way, there can be a translation risk situation. Translation risk meaning if we own foreign assets or liabilities in a different currency, then we need to consolidate it at year end, which means it needs to be converted to W dollars. So there could be a translation loss. Same with transaction risk, because we have international clients, we will be invoicing them in different currencies. So there will be a risk of that currency exchange rate changing. very, very prevalent in this exam, or rather top issue, is going to be economic risks, or rather financial risks split into economic transaction translation risk, or rather currency risk, whatever you want to name it as. Now we have extracts from Leothayre's annual report. They've given us Leothayre's annual report. In the annual report, mission, vision and values are given. Firstly, what is mission? The mission is the reason for existence of a particular company. Why a particular company exists. So Leothayre exists to lead in the creation and operation of satellites that meet the need of clients. So you exist so that you can meet the need of clients. So continuous innovation is what Leothayre exists for. See, 1, we are learning about our company. 2, we are relating to E3, P3, F3 topics. 3, we are picking up on ideas and terms and phrases which I will read, reread, repeat while going through the pre-scene analysis multiple times so that I can use this information when I start writing mock questions. For example, you are writing anything about Leothayre's expansion, or any topic, just include a line saying our mission is to lead in the creation and operation of satellites. This means that, okay, we should go ahead with this project. For example, when you include some information like this from the pre-scene within your answers, the examiner knows that, okay, this person knows what he's talking about. This person has studied the pre-scene. This person is very well ingrained into working at Leothayre. That is the strategic case study. That is why I give so much time to the pre-scene analysis. 1, understanding the company. 2, E3, P3, F3 topics. 3, you have to use this information throughout the pre-scene, within your mocks and in your final exam to give your answer further substance. That's mission. Second, vision. Vision is something that we want to achieve in the future. So, vision is, Leothayre's vision is to provide space-based facilities that can enhance the quality of life on Earth. So, we want to do something that can enhance the quality of life on Earth. So, this is what we are moving towards. Now our value is, first value is that Leothayre chooses excellence in all decisions. We innovate. We insist on fairness and respect in the workplace. We have a strong relationship with our clients and we act with integrity. Never promise something that we can't deliver. Now you need to remember your mission, your vision, your values very clearly and make sure that anything that you suggest in the exam, in your mock questions with me, in your final exam are very true to this mission, true to this vision, true to these values. You cannot suggest something that is completely unethical because your value is of integrity. You cannot suggest something that is, let's say, cut on innovation because your value is innovation. Please make sure that you remember the mission, vision, values in your own words and then obviously please use it within your answers. If you don't use it, any of this knowledge of the pre-scene that I'm giving you will go to waste. So the mission and vision align closely with the expectation of key stakeholders. Leothayre's focus on quality of life and innovation helps manage stakeholder expectations because that's how you have projected yourself. And if you don't stay true to these values, it's going to damage your stakeholders' expectations. Same way, a failure to act in accordance with these values, such as over-compromising on ethics, will lead to reputational loss for us. Also, please remember that while profitability remains key, Leothayre's mission and vision also highlights non-financial goals. such as good long-term performance, innovation, integrity. We are focusing on non-profit, non-financial, things as well. So only finance is okay, but non-finance is also important, which is gaining more and more importance because of your GRI, IR framework, which is there in the F3 syllabus. So please make sure that everything that you mention is true, very much related to your mission, vision, and your values. Next, we go to our board of directors discussion. Now, it's very important, specifically in the strategic case study exam, to know the people who are leading us. Because if you don't know the people leading you, you are part of one of the leaders, the senior finance manager. If you don't know the people above you who are leading us, then naturally you don't know your company well. So it's very important to know the background of the leaders, because their background will define the company's future, because they are making the day-to-day decisions. So let's start one by one. Again, why this is important? First, to know our company. Second, try to link E3, P3 and F3. But third, we use as much information as we can from our pre-scene analysis to include in our mock questions, especially with director names. So for example, a director is good at electronic engineering. For example, I'm saying, which Fatma is. Anything related to electronics when you are building a satellite, anything related to manufacturing of a satellite, any situation in the exam related to manufacturing of a new satellite, you can end your answer, start your answer, somewhere in your answer write that let's take the opinion of Fatma because she is the expert on electronic. Anything like this where you are using a director competency, where you are using a director's name within your answer, again further showcases to the examiner that you know your company. And knowing the company is very important, but how you actually portray it to the examiner, include it in your answer, is also a very vital aspect. So please remember director competencies and then please use it. Up until now, I have not spoken about using, but in this part 2, I am specifically making sure that you fit the mind, feed the word using, so that you actually use it when the time comes. So first we talk about Fatma Ayub. She is the non-executive chairman. The role of a chairman and a CEO has been explained in our P3 syllabus. Please make sure you know that these are different roles. They're not the same. So Fatma is an electronic engineer by training. She spent 20 years working for a major car manufacturer, initially in manufacturing and latterly in research and development. She left the manufacturer to take up the role of head of education with the Wexland Faculty of Engineers. So she was an engineer. She quit that role and became a faculty for teaching engineers. So the engineering background is very much present with her. She was subsequently promoted to chief executive of the faculty. She now combines her position on Leothayre's board with a visiting lectureship in electronic engineering at Capital University. She was appointed relatively recently in 2022, but her competency is going to be related to manufacturing, to engineering, because she has that background, which can obviously be used in research and development as well. Both are key for my company. Manufacturing is my core competence. Research, innovation is my core competence. So Fatma's role, providing independent judgment and leadership to hold the directors accountable, is going to be key, because the chairman is the leader of the board. The CEO is the leader of the day-to-day decisions of the company. The chairman is the leader of the board. So if we have such a strong leader of the board as the chairman, as Fatma, who is also who also has the electronic knowledge at the back of her hand, will be very good, important for us. So as chair, Fatma plays a key role in overseeing the risk management structure in place. Now she knows the manufacturing system, she knows the R&D system, so she can have better controls in place. So Fatma as the chairman is a good decision because of her competency. Next, we have Dr. Robert Suvaj. Now Dr. Robert is the CEO. He has a doctorate again in mechanical engineering. He was one of the first appointments when Leothayre was founded in 2004. He has remained with the company since then, being promoted to operations and then CEO. Robert was promoted to the board as operations director in 19 and CEO as 23. So Fatma became chairman in 22, Robert became CEO in 23. Again, CEO is the person who leads the day-to-day of the company. So Robert's appointment as CEO ensures continuity of vision, because what was our vision? To become the best and to service all clients' needs. If we have a mechanical engineer heading this company, then naturally he will be more and more inclined to get the mechanics of a satellite correct. So his technical leadership style may foster innovation because he has that technology at the back of his head. As a CEO and former operations director, Robert's main responsibility is to deliver the agreed strategy. What is decided, make sure that the company follows up on that. So day-to-day running of the company. As CEO, Robert sets the tone from the top. His leadership style influences the company's culture, the risk tolerance, the ethical behavior. So he is the role model rather. How he acts defines the company. Remember that. So Robert is the CEO. Again, his competency is mechanical engineering doctorate. Next, we have Min, who is the operations director. Now, Min has a Master of Engineering degree in aeronautical engineering. She spent several years working as a project manager for a quoted aerospace company, for another aerospace company. During that time, she supported the development of an updated version of the company's airliner. So she worked at an aerospace company. Generally, aerospace companies make rockets. So she worked at a rocket manufacturing company. So she has the knowledge of what a rocket is. She has the knowledge, and now she's working with a satellite manufacturer. So she'll be able to, guide the operations in a much better way of what kind of satellite we can make to reduce our launch costs. For example, she is also an expert. She has an engineering degree. She joined Leothayre to support the development of systems and mission management software. Remember, she joined Leothayre for software management. Min Chie is now responsible for all aspects of scheduling and liaising with third parties in order to ensure that production facilities are available and arrangements for launches are in place. So production is good as well as launching is in place is the job of Min Chie. She is the project or rather operations director. She joined the board as operations director in 2021. So her background and current role directly linked to efficient scheduling, resource allocation, and better planning. Her experience in aerospace earlier is a very big benefit for us. And her role involves managing external dependencies because she has to liaise with the launch providers. So Min Chie must help to ensure that projects stay within the budget. So her manufacturing scheduling has to be on point. Her launch liaising has to be on point. Her job is very important. So what are Min Chie's competencies? We already saw over here. Next, we have Dr. Alex Mando. He is the technology director. Now, Alex has a doctorate in aeronautical engineering. Again, we have all supremely qualified people running the company. He worked for Wexland Spaceport for 6 years after graduation. Now this sounds like a government company because it has the name of the country, Vexland Spaceport. During that time, he focused on the assembly and launch of rockets again. He joined Leothayre as a mechanical engineer, focusing on the integration of satellites with launch vehicles. So again, he also has the knowledge of rockets. Alex is now responsible for oversight of all design and manufacture of satellites. So his competency is designing and manufacturing of satellites so that they can fit well with launch rockets. And he has that experience with himself. He was appointed in 2022. Now, Alex plays a central role in driving innovation, which is one of our key core values. Because if in the design and the manufacture innovation is not, you don't see innovation, then naturally your product will not be innovative. So his oversight spans R&D, engineering, operational interface. All of these are very clear value creating activities for us. And this is also a very high risk phase. So it's going to be very important for the CEO, or rather the chairman in this case, to set strong risk management controls so that nothing goes wrong in the design and manufacture state of satellites. Next, we have Gamzee Elmas, Chief Finance Officer, your boss. You are the Senior Finance Manager. You report to Gamzee. Now, Gamzee has a degree in banking. She spent much of her career to date working for a major international bank, specializing in negotiating loans for high technology startups. So firstly, her major skill is she worked at an international bank, so she knows the transaction risks and all the currency risks that can arise. She will know how to manage them as well, which is going to be key for my company. Second, for my company, it's so financially technical that you will need finance all the time. It's very intensively finance. It's very finance intensive, this market, because making satellites, launching satellites is not cheap. So we will need loans. We will need different sources of finance, which she has again an expertise in. She joined Leothayre as a senior finance manager to support the management of the company's cash flows and the funding of expansion. She became CFO in 2020. So very important is her role in helping you raise finance, helping you manage your treasury functions. This is going to be key. Next, we have Mark Jones, marketing. Mark has considerable experience of aerospace sales. Again, all the board members are so far very well qualified. He had a junior admin role in the sales department of a major aircraft manufacturer. He demonstrated considerable talent and was promoted through various levels until he was appointed a senior sales manager. So in the sales aspect as well, he has pushed forward. His responsibilities included heading the sales team responsible for the sale of cargo aircraft, and he joined in 2021. Now he plays a key role in defining how Leothayre positions its brand in the global market, differentiating ourselves because of our reliability, our large order book, customers keep coming back to us. So he will be the person who positions us as a brand. So his aerospace experience prepares him to help Leothayre enter new markets, especially with international logistics and defense related clients as an expansion strategy because of his, selling prowess. Let's put it that way. In a technical business like Leothayre, misaligned sales promises can be very, 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 reputationally cause damage to us. This is our core value, that we don't promise clients what we can't deliver. So his role will be important in that. You see how I'm linking all the information. But again, you will have to go through it multiple times to be able to link this way. I have gone through it multiple times. That is why I am able to link it this way. Now we go to Professor Alice Alves. She's a senior independent director. So a non-executive director. Up until now, we considered the executive directors plus the chairman. Now we are considering non-executives. Now, Alice had a career in academia, teaching and researching economics at Capital University. Her research interests included environmental studies and the tracking of urban expansion. Her academic publications included studies that have made use of data provided by Leothayre clients. So she also has the academia background on economics and environmental studies, which both are very important for us because we are a company that inherently needs to focus on sustainability because of everything involved with space debris and the debris falling on Earth from the satellites that we launch when they fragment, and also economics because we need to know the market economy before we start creating products for clients. So Alice can help the board assess stakeholder risk related to environmental, social, governance issues, ESG, which is an E3 topic for you. Next, we have Kavin, who is another independent director. So Kavin has had a career in politics, including several years as a member of Wexland's parliament. So we have an ex-elected representative who is part of our board. During that time, he took an active interest in the industry and science. He sat on a number of parliamentary committees, including the committee responsible for an investigation into the potential environmental impact of Wexland spaceport before permission for its construction was granted. So he has say or knowledge about how the government functions. He knows what is needed for spaceport construction because he has granted the permissions. So if we were to expand and create our own spaceport, distant, far away possibility, but things do come up like this in the exam, then his knowledge will be very important. He retired from politics in 2020 and then joined Leothayre. So Kavin's political background strengthens the board ability to anticipate regulatory changes, policy decisions, political pressures, because all of these are very important in our industry. He brings insight into government as stakeholders because government is a very important stakeholder in this industry, in this market. So Kavin enhances Leothayre's ability to better manage and better mitigate political risk because he is able to predict. He knows what the requirements are. So very important addition to our board. Then we have Manal Al-Ramli. She's another independent director. So Manal worked for a major quoted civil engineering company, starting as a surveyor and rising to a seat on the company's board. She has retired from full-time employment now. She combines her seat on Leothayre's board with a directorship of East Town College. So again, she has the civil engineering background and she is also a teacher now. Or not a teacher, but a director at an East Town College. So her part-time job is related to education. Manal's connection to further education can support talent pipeline initiatives because people who graduate from that college can be offered an internship at our company if they are well skilled. So her experience becomes important for us as an overall company. So let's make a summary analysis for all the board of directors now. So if I make an overall view, I know that the board is highly qualified technical experts. Independent voices on the board, which is the senior independent non-executive independent directors, are also having the knowledge to challenge the executive directors if they are going wrong. Each director is well qualified. They have backgrounds in engineering, aerospace, education, politics, pushing Leothayre forward. If I look at risk with multiple independent non-executive directors, the board is well balanced in terms of knowledge, in terms of risk management. Directors bring knowledge of political, environmental, reputational, operational, and stakeholder risks which are important for our industry, which is going to be high profile, high risk. The CFO brings banking and startup funding experience, crucial for managing cash flow. And the board also includes strong project delivery, capital investment, and cost control experience. So overall, if I look at my board, it has strong strategic technical leadership, it has good risk oversight, and it has sound financial operational control. So overall, the company is well positioned in terms of, let's say, just pushing it forward because of its leaders. Now they've given us some board responsibilities. Just an image has been provided over here where they tell us that Robert is at the top. Under him is the operations director, technology department, finance department, and marketing department. Then each director deals with things which are related to their department. So for example, operation deals with liaison, health and safety, human resource. Technology deals with research, satellite design. Finance deals with financial reporting, treasury. Marketing deals with sales and after sales service, and public relations. So pretty much a very straightforward functional organizational structure can be seen with the CEO overseeing the 4 core functions. This reflects a streamlined but a centralized hierarchy, with each director accountable for their own department and Robert at the top making the call, making the decision. The functional structure here ensures clear roles, responsibilities, and accountability, which supports effective strategy execution. However, this setup will create silos if inter-department collaboration is not good. So we need to ensure that, okay, everybody is well educated, different departments, good thing. But there has to be good cohesion between the departments as well, because at the end of the day, it's one company. What I'm seeing is that there is no separate HR officer or risk officer or risk department which could limit strategic focus on talent and risk. Unless this is covered well within each function, I don't see any mention of risk. I don't see any mention of HR. So are we hiring the best people? Are we discussing risk at the board level? That is not seen over here. So the appointment of a risk department and a risk manager could be to the board rather, so that there is direct board oversight, could be the next step and could be a situation which is very extensively covered in P3. So responsibility for health and safety and third party liaison is under operations, which is appropriate, but it means risk is dispersed across departments rather than managed separately, because there is no risk department. Every department or every function is responsible for their own risk rather than having one risk department that will finally be accountable. So this is what I saw from this structure, that no HR officer, no risk department was found. Now to a very important discussion, because this ties directly to corporate governance. So they've given us some board committees that exist. Audit committee, risk committee, remuneration committee, nominations committee, very good. We see that there are 4 non-executive directors, including the chairman, present over here. Now the UK Corporate Governance Code says that for any listed company or for a well-run company which is in our values, the corporate governance principles have to be met. The first principle is the role of the CEO and the chairman should be different, which has been met over here. So tick mark. Second rule is equal number of executives and non-executives. Over here we see 3 plus 1. 3 independent plus non-executive. If you look at your situation, it's 4 executives plus 1 CEO. So there is an imbalance in the board. So separation of roles, okay. Equal number, imbalance. Third, mandatory committees, audit committee, remuneration committee, nominations committee are mandatory, which are present. Okay, very good. For a big company, there should be 3 independent NEDs, part of each committee. Okay. Risk committee is not mandatory, but it's recommended. It's good that we have a risk committee. Internal audit should directly report to the audit committee, which is also met. Okay. The chairman cannot chair the audit committee or remuneration committee, but can be part of it. So chairman cannot be the leader of the audit committee or the remuneration committee, but they can be part of it. This is the UK Corporate Governance Code expectation. Now let's see if it's met. So overall, if I look at it, role is separate, committees are present, chairman is not the, chairman and CEO aren't the same people, internal audit reports to audit committee, everything seeming okay. So if I overall look at the membership, you will see that Fatma is part of the audit committee, the risk committee and the nominations committee. Now, as a large company, ideally it should be 3 independent non-executive directors part of each committee. The chairman can be part of the committee, but the chairman cannot be the chair of the committee. Over here we are seeing 2 independent non-executive directors plus the chairman part of audit committee. Same for risk, 2 independent plus chairman. Same for nomination, 2 independent plus the chairman, which I see as okay. But for a large company, general recommendation would be 1 more NED be appointed, because anywhere there is an NED imbalance on the board. So if we appoint 1 more NED, and this NED can have, let's say, extensive risk experience, extensive HR experience, because that's lacking on the board, and this NED could become part of audit committee, remunerations committee or nominations committee to make it further more independent. The rule is that chairman can be part, but he cannot be the chair of audit or of the audit committee or of the remunerations committee for that matter. So overall, the board of directors are strong. The positioning in terms of governance is a little bit weak if I look at the imbalance in the board plus some imbalances in the committees in terms of not meeting the minimum requirement of 3 independent NEDs. Now overall, as a company, only thing that we can look at as something that is lacking is the equal number and the equal number of executives and non-executives. If I narrow in on the committee memberships, then that is very that's a very critical analysis that I'm making, but that is the rule, so I'm just bringing it up for you. Now they've given us Leothayre's principal risks. Now they've given us, in the pre-scene itself, they have given us risks. See, I had told you to maintain a list of topics plus maintain a list of risks. Now, if you have already maintained your list of risks, you will see that they coincide with the principal risks that have been identified in the pre-scene, which means your job is much more straightforward if you have understood and followed the pre-scene so far. So first, risk impact. Now Leothayre is a young business that we'll look at risk impact and risk mitigation for each risk one by one. The first risk is that Leothayre is a young business that competes in a relatively young and developing industry. Future growth is forecast. It's difficult to forecast future growth with any confidence. So what are we doing for this? The management team pays close attention to the maintenance and improvement of internal reporting systems. The management team pays close attention to changes in market for satellites and also for launch and mission services. So they're telling us that we are strong on internal reporting systems, and they're also telling us that we are strong on an external market analysis, which means the business could have already done an external market analysis using Pastel or Porter's 5 forces E3 syllabus. This is the first risk they have identified. Second risk, the regulatory framework of the space industry is changing constantly. Government regulation. This is where your NED with the political background comes into the play. So Leothayre takes great care to comply with applicable regulations. Political risk. It pays close attention to ongoing developments and works with government agencies. So again, we try to manage political risk as much as possible. Second outlook. Third, satellites can fail before their missions are completed. Leothayre satellites are tested extensively. This cannot happen with us because we are known for quality. So we test extensively. Ownership of satellites is transferred to customers at the time of delivery to the launch site. The customer bears the risk of satellite malfunction during the launch. So my job is only to make the best satellite and give it to the customer. I don't take any responsibility for the launch. Next, this was the third risk that we spoke about. Satellites can fail. Fourth risk, Leothayre is heavily dependent on suppliers for the delivery of components and assemblies. Any delays could threaten mission plans. Again, the mitigation is the company is working to keep as much fabrication work in-house as possible. So we are trying to do everything as much as we can in-house so that we can control. So further notice that we will try to do as much in-house as possible. We will try to do everything as much as we can within our roof so that we can control. So more aspects for expansion very clearly visible over here because we are trying to do everything in-house. Fifth, Leothayre depends heavily on a small number of clients to maintain revenue and profitability. The loss of clients or any adverse change in client performance could prove harmful. We have a marketing department specifically. So staff are working on contracts and expected to pay close attention to progress. Keep a good relationship with your clients. 6. Various macroeconomic factors can have significant impact on the business. So, economic risks. These include political uncertainties that might affect the ability of government agencies to invest in space missions. Exchange rates is also an issue. Very clearly, your currency risks are going to come into the picture over here. So what I have done is I have created a matrix for you with the risk, with the related E3, P3 and F3 topic and telling you how you can manage the risk. So for market uncertainty, the first risk, what can we do? We have to accept it. This is the market which is changing. You can't do anything. You have to accept it. Second risk was evolving regulatory framework, your political risk. So try to reduce it as much as possible by compliance, by being in touch with regulators. Satellite failure risk. You are transferring this because you say that you make the satellite and then whatever happens on the launch, I don't control it. So we are transferring it. Supplier dependency and delays. Again, you try to reduce this as much as possible by manufacturing in-house. Client concentration. Again, you try to reduce this by being in touch with your clients consistently. Macroeconomic risk. Currency risk. You try to transfer by hedging techniques. So your currency risk hedging techniques. Your interest rate risk hedging techniques from F3 become a very, very important chapter and analysis over here. And that brings me to the end of part 2 of our pre-scene analysis. A very long part, but a very important one. Please make sure that at the end of part 2, you have a solid list of E3, P3, F3 topics. Plus, you have a solid list of risks that your company can face ready with you. I would recommend go through part 1 again and part 2 again before you start with part 3, because that is financials. Thank you.